Welcome to another edition of the Eye on Life podcast. I am your host, Brian Boyer, and for those of you returning who have watched past shows, welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have you, and thanks for taking the time to listen. And today we are going to talk about the importance that music has in our lives. We've all been molded one way or the other through music. It's helped us through tough times. It's helped us get pumped going to the gym or for a jog. We've all used music in many ways, and you know, some of us love it more than others. But for some of us, like myself and our guest today, it plays a big role in our life, and we are thrilled today to have Mike Cassia, who is it's kind of a dual role for you, Mike. A dual role. You are a teacher and you're in a band. That's a little bit of a dichotomy. So Mike is a teacher at our old high school. And let me just, before I introduce you, Mike, I just want to set the stage here. Mike and I know each other from what, 6th grade probably, Mike?
Yeah, about that.
And Mike has been kind enough to join me on the show. We go way back, and we haven't spoken in a while, but we're catching up today, and we're two buddies at a bar talking about music, and that's kind of what the whole idea of this podcast is. And before we get started, I do just want to shout out, we have some listeners who have been listening to the show. We have our first international listener, someone from Singapore. Have you ever performed in Singapore?
Haven't.
You will someday, I bet. And so the thing is, Mike, I don't know anyone in Singapore, so that means that it's not a friend, it's not a relative, it's not my parents listening to the show. So I appreciate Singapore. And for some reason, and I love this, Mountain View, California is where my most listeners are from. So I don't know if I'm in with Google or something like that, but I get the metrics every week as to who is listening to the show and where they are. I don't know the specifics of who they are, but someone from Mountain View, or people from Mountain View, we're very big in Mountain View. So it's in Northern California. I'm excited about that. I love California. I love Northern California, and I love Google. So it's a good combination. So Mike Cassia, who is a teacher at Shenandoah High School, our alma mater, and also in a band. And Mike, tell us a little bit about your band. First off, The Dude Abides, which I told you before. I did my research. It's a Big Lebowski reference. Tell us a little bit about how you guys came up with that concept and the band name.
Yeah, so we are a 5-piece cover band, so we don't play any originals. And where we came up with the name, the lead singer's wife kind of suggested it. He brought it up at a rehearsal. We were trying to come up with a name. We were just about ready to start gigging and kind of had all our songs tightened up and couldn't really figure out a name. And she thought that it was a very cool name, that even if you didn't understand the reference to the movie or know anything about the movie, that it would just be a cool name. I was kind of against it at first because though I had seen the movie, it didn't really have a big impact on me. You know, it's funny, but didn't make a lasting impression on me. And after they decided for that to be the band name, I finally went back and watched the movie a second time. And after 2 hours, I'm like, did I miss the part? What happened? It's, one of the last 2 minutes of the movie. And it's fantastic. It's iconic. I didn't realize how iconic it was. Just so many people know about it and they love the name. And
was that a prerequisite for you to, did you have to watch the movie like a certain amount of times before you were allowed in the band? I mean, I had to at least watch it to understand where it came from and appreciate it. And I did. It was good. It's a great movie. Now, so the thing that's fascinating here, and I think this is a great hook, because I don't know if there are a lot of teachers that are also in bands. Maybe they are. And if you are, I'd love to hear from you. So tell us a little about your professional background. So you're a teacher. First off, what do you teach?
I teach high school math, 12th grade now.
Okay, so 12th grade math.
Yep.
And that's fascinating. So I'm terrible at math, first off. So I appreciate that. And I vaguely remember you being a solid student, but if you told me that you were, what's that?
A solid B student.
Well, hey, you're good enough to teach math, so that's good enough that's good enough for most of us.
Right.
How does a teacher become a member of a band? And is that something that has to be secret? Do your students know you're in the band? How does that work?
I try to keep it secret every year, but it eventually gets out. And they'll say, "Oh, we want to come see you," and we only play in bars where you have to be 21. So I try to keep it a secret as long as I can. You know, former students always tell my current students and they find out. But it's cool, you know, and they ask about it and ask about it. I always promise them, you know, towards the end of the year, I'll do something for them, or if one of them sing, I'd love to have them accompany me, because I can't sing, I just play. You know, and I had some students volunteer to do that one year, and it was awesome. You know, we rehearsed 4 songs a couple times, and this girl did vocals, and it was just incredible. We had a great time doing it.
So are you then the cool teacher? Because, I mean,
Yeah.
hey, Mr. Cassia is in a band.
Yeah, they think so. You know, I try to downplay it, you know, but
Do you ever break it? Now, do you ever break the guitar out in class?
I used to kind of when I first started. Now I'm self-conscious because I won't sing. And when we have done it, you know, their attention span is only so long. So if I'm not singing, just playing the guitar, they could tend to lose interest. But, you know, what kind of got me into the band, I think you mentioned that before, like how does a teacher transition to that? It was just basically, you know, I had played guitar a little bit. I took some lessons when I was like 18 and put it aside and never really did too much with it. Marriage, work, and kids, you know how that is.
Well, isn't that the prototype of a rock star? Marriage, kids, home by 5:30. That's the prototype, right? Isn't that what all rockers do?
It's what every rock star aspires to. Yes.
But you're a teacher, you're a rocker, you're a parent.
Yeah.
So how does that happen? I mean, you took some lessons. You're in the Dude Abides.
Yeah.
Which was a great name, and I know people can find you on Facebook as well. I want to check you out, and we're going to talk about where you perform in just a few minutes. But again, going back to what we were saying, you know, you're a teacher, a math teacher, and I have to admit, you know, I love teachers. You know, my parents were both teachers, retired, and you know, I always look at teachers as being a little bit more buttoned up. You know, I can't picture my social studies teacher or math teacher in a bar, you know, belting out Big Balls by AC/DC. Okay. I did my research. See,
you did.
So how does that happen? How do you get into that?
Well, so first of all, I think the times have changed. I think, yes, we would never expect our teachers to do that. I think it's pretty, you know, most of the teachers these days are more down to earth and a little more adventurous and into those kind of things. But what happened for me was it just, you know, being a teacher full time, my wife didn't work when we had our children. So it was just surviving off the one income, and there just was never enough money to do anything. And I was just getting cooped up in the house. I needed to do something. I needed to get out. It was driving me crazy. So for my own sanity, it's what I pursued the music. That's when I started. I was about 35 and I started looking on Craigslist just for auditions. And that's kind of how it happened. I, you know, was barely even playing full songs at that point, but I just had this drive to, you know, if I can't get out of that house, you know, spend money to get out, might as well get out and make some money and have a good time, have some beers, play some tunes, meet some cool people. And I just wanted it bad enough that I made it happen.
So Mike, you're based out of Saratoga Springs, New York.
Yeah.
Which is Saratoga, obviously, that's home for me too, right?
Yep,
home away from home.
Yep.
And if you're listening to the show and you haven't been to Saratoga Springs, and I want the Saratoga Chamber of Commerce to hear this, because I am going to play up Saratoga here. Saratoga Springs is one of the most amazing cities, towns that you will ever visit. It's an amazing place. Arts, culture, recreation, music is huge. Does Saratoga Springs, New York, have a music scene? Is there anything considered a scene there? Because it's obviously a very hip place. There's a lot going on there, but does it have a music scene?
It's mostly cover bands. There's not really an original music scene. Mostly cover bands at all the bars. You know, there's 1 or 2 places that have original acts, but it's mostly covers. It's what the people want to hear when they're out just drinking with their friends, you know? They want to hear songs that they know and love. They want to hear them done well, and they want to have a good time with it. So it's what captures their attention.
I have a lot of questions about cover bands. I'm going to get to that in a second. I have a lot of questions about cover bands.
No.
It's a thing. And I actually have had this conversation, the cover band conversation, with many, many people over many, many drinks over many, many years. Before we get there, and you're listening to Eye on Life podcast, I'm your host, Brian Boyer. I am with my high school buddy, Mike Cassia from Saratoga Springs, New York, who is a teacher at Shenandoah High School in Clifton Park, New York. Shout out to anyone who might be listening who is a graduate or current student at Shen. Go Plainsman, right? And before we got on the air here, Mike and I were talking about kind of the role music's been playing today. You know, we've all been cooped up. We've all been quarantined. Some of us still are. Some of us are out and about a little bit more. But I was telling Mike, you know, the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, and again, I completely acknowledge the fact that I am not objective, okay? It is the best concert venue in the world. And if you've never been to SPAC, it's called SPAC, Saratoga Performing Arts Center. It's in the Saratoga State Park. It's under the stars. It's nature. And I'm going to digress for a second here, because the fact that Mike and I are good friends, I'm going to embarrass him a little bit right now.
Okay.
And I don't even know if he's going to remember this, but I do. And before I get to my point, because this is what I do on the show, I digress, Mike.
All right.
I actually have a point that I'm going to make about the Saratoga Performing Arts Center. But at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, there's a great area before you actually walk into the venue, and it's very green. There's a lot of landscaping. As I said, it's in the state park. And there are reflecting pools. You know what I'm talking about, Mike? In the state park.
I know what you're talking about. Yep, absolutely.
I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
I don't know where you're going.
Well, be ready.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Mike and I and a bunch of other friends that we had in high school, and yes, Mike and I. Well, Mike was popular. I don't remember I don't even recall being popular. We didn't always wear black shirts in high school either, like we're doing today. But Mike and I don't recall if we were in high school, so of course we weren't drinking.
Of course,
we would never do that in high school. But we went up and we were high school kids, and we were cheap, even cheaper than I am now. And we went up, and I remember we went up to listen to Ozzy Osbourne. And you might not remember this, but I'm going to remind you, because I remember it like it was yesterday, and I always bring it up whenever I go to a show there. Whoever I'm with, I remind them of Mike Cassia. And we were outside because there's a fenced-in area. You pay to go in, but if you don't want to pay to go in, you can listen from the outside. And we were, broke high school kids. We wanted to go up and hear the legend Ozzy Osbourne. Anyway, this guy comes up to us. He's wearing, I remember literally like it was yesterday, curly hair, no shirt on. I don't know what he was under the influence of, but probably a little bit of everything. And he challenged Mike to a race across one of the reflecting pools. Now, it's frowned upon to do that in the state park. There are park police. There are park police in cars. There are park police on horses. You remember this. And Mike was challenged, and Mike accepted the challenge to race this gentleman with a nice pair of jeans. I think they were actually more dungarees than they were jeans. And do you remember this?
It's vaguely coming back to me.
And I think Mike was actually sober. The gentleman was not. And I have to say, I think Mike won the race because I think the guy gave up about maybe 2 strokes into the race. So congratulations on that, Mike.
Yeah, I was definitely sober.
You were sober and you won the race. So congratulations on that. So
good times at SPAC.
And I think there might have been another time where you may have tried to jump the fence to get in without paying. Was that you?
No.
It was someone else. It was Dave Walsh. Okay. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because this year, as we get into the summer months here, right? We all listen to the music that we love, and we all get pumped up for our summer shows, right? SPAC, great venue. Here in Hartford, we have the Xfinity Theater, which used to be called the Meadows. And I was telling Mike before that I was listening to the Black Keys recently, and I've really gotten into the Black Keys over the past couple of years, excuse me. And I know you guys do some cover tunes of the Black Keys. And I was listening to the Black Keys, but instead of getting pumped for the show that was scheduled for SPAC in August, all I could keep thinking was, I'm not going to get to see these guys in concert this summer. So, Mike, am I being a baby about it, or are there other people that are also bummed that they're not going to get to see their favorite band this summer? I understand. Listen, I understand that it's, as long as I'm healthy, my loved ones are healthy. I understand that's a much bigger deal. But I am bummed that I'm not going to get to see Dave Matthews, which is an annual thing for me. I'm bummed that I'm not going to get to see the Black Keys. I had 1 week, Mike. 1 week in August, I was going to go see the Black Keys and Sammy Hagar.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's a good week right there. So am I being a baby about it? I mean, are you feeling the same way? Are others feeling the same way?
Yeah, you're not being a baby. I think we're all a little disappointed, very disappointed. You look forward to this. You only get it once a year. Saratoga is very different without the track being open to spectators. We're all missing that. All the concerts, the live shows, believe me, the people who are performing are even more upset about it. it's what we do for fun. And for me, it's just extra spending money. But for these bands, it's their livelihood. The music industry has changed so much in the last 10 years that's where they make the bulk of their income. It's not on the music sales. It's on the live shows, and they're hurting. They're not happy about it, and the fans aren't happy about it either.
Well, for anyone that, again, watching the show here, and thanks for joining us. We're talking about music and the importance of music in many of our lives, and I just kind of liken it to if you have a special place over the summer that you go every year. You've been going since you were a little kid, a beach cottage or a lake, right? And that was just ripped away from you. It's very disappointing. It's very sad. But in all reality, I know there are things that are more important than that. And I am excited, hopefully, that these bands will come back next year and we can head out to SPAC and have a couple of beers and watch the Black Keys and whoever else. I was actually looking forward to seeing Disturbed this summer too for the first time. Mike, another band that was touring this summer, and we actually are going to have a full show on this at some point. We're planning on doing a lot of shows on music. Nickelback. Okay, you're laughing, right? Okay. And so I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here for a second, and then I'm going to turn this over to you because I know I'm talking a lot. And just so everyone knows, I'm always very honest on the show. We were supposed to have Kerry Collins with iHeartMedia. He's a local DJ here in Hartford, KC 101. And unfortunately, he's in Vermont, where Mike apparently they apparently have no technology in Vermont. So he was supposed to join us. He's still trying. He might join us later. Otherwise, we're going to have him on a future show. So that's why Mike and I are going back and forth here, and that's why you have to listen to a little bit more of me tonight. But I have something I have to vent about, Mike, and I want you to talk me off the ledge here, and I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, okay.
Why do people hate on Nickelback? I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of Nickelback. Okay, I've never seen them in concert. I would. I don't own a Nickelback shirt, but I would, and just to get a reaction from people. But I don't understand why there's so much hate for this band that has done nothing wrong. They stay out of trouble. What's the guy's name? Chad Kroeger, right? He dated Avril Lavigne. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
I understand they're a little pop here and there. They try to be heavy. Maybe there's a little bit of an identity crisis going on, but the guy has a really good voice. And Mike, we on Instagram this past week, we had a poll on. We asked, in fact, hopefully the poll's still on there when this show airs. There were a bunch of people that said they liked Nickelback but would never admit it. I'm on here and I'm admitting it. But as a musician, and I'm not a musician, you are, why do people have such strong feelings and hatred towards a band that's been around for a while? They're a great band. Why?
I agree with you. I don't see the reason for it. I think they're good. Again, I never really went out and bought any of their albums, but every radio rock song I heard, I don't know. I think people just perhaps are despise the success that they had. I mean, they had one of the most spun records of whatever year that what was that song? Their first hit when that came out. It was the most spun tune of the year. It's just overplayed. I think I kind of liken it to and I'm not a sports guy, but you brought up everyone hates the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's kind of the same thing. Everybody needs there's something to hate, and I think they chose Nickelback to kind of carry that flag. The super success they had, I don't get it. I think they're good. Our lead singer had a huge thing. We're not playing Nickelback. We're not playing Nickelback. And
you just answered my next question.
Yeah.
So you guys don't do Nickelback.
We don't do Nickelback. I was in another band temporarily and I got to do it and it was fun and I loved it. But yeah, there are certain people that just, won't do it.
So, I mean, there's a legitimate reason to hate the Dallas Cowboys. They're a hateable team. Nickelback has done nothing. These guys, they stay out of trouble, right? They seem to be out of the news. Here's the thing that I don't understand, and this is the thing that baffles me. And again, if anybody knows anyone connected with the band Nickelback, I want them on the show. It'll be a very friendly interview because I am pro Nickelback. I really am. So if anybody knows their marketing people, their PR people, the band themselves, any connection at all, let's get them on the show and let's talk about this because I am pro Nickelback. I don't understand it because you're right. People do hate to see people have success. I get that. But there are plenty of other bands out there that have success that are not hated as much. And the thing is, right, somebody likes Nickelback because they're selling out concerts, right? Yep. They're selling out arenas. They're selling out amphitheaters. Okay, so somebody likes them. So I don't understand it. And I wish that people would stand up in society and say, I like Nickelback? I don't understand it.
I put a little Nickelback on when I saw that question. I put it on, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, he's got a great voice.
Why, Mike. I don't know why this bothers me so much, but I and I understand. People, if people want to say they're sellouts, or people want to say they're cheesy, well, fine. Do you like Maroon 5?
So you brought up one of the questions that you sent me ahead of time was are there any artists that you just hate?
Is Maroon 5 one of your artists?
I can't stand them. I can't get to the radio quick enough to turn them off.
I want to know why, but before we get to the reason why you hate Maroon 5,
yeah,
people love Maroon 5, and they're a popular band.
I know.
Adam Levine is a heartthrob. He's on TV now. He does what's the show he does? It's not America's Got Talent. It's the
Voice.
The Voice. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now he's cheesy.
Yeah.
I like him. I've seen them in concert, and they put on a great show. I saw him a few years ago here in Hartford with Kelly Clarkson. I admit it. I was there. Okay.
Okay.
But if you're going to hate on Nickelback, you have to hate on Maroon 5. Why do you hate Maroon 5? I need to know this.
I just dislike his high falsetto voice all the time. It drives me crazy when, I like music where, nice raspy voice, a little deep voice. Some rock. His voice just too high, too falsetto. I don't get it.
Chad Kroeger never has that issue. He's got that gravelly voice. And I agree, and Justin Timberlake does that too. And I love most music, and some of these guys, Charlie Puth, right? They get that high voice. I feel like it's, they're maybe being grabbed where they shouldn't be grabbed, right? And that's why they have they're hot. But it's odd to me that people hate on Nickelback. I don't want to make the show all about Nickelback. I want to get back to you.
No, it's funny that you bring up Justin Timberlake, because I was trying to think of artists that, I said, I don't want to throw too many artists under the bus. Everyone's doing their thing. And Justin Timberlake came on today, and I couldn't change it quick enough. Right up there with Maroon 5 and the falsetto voice. Just not a fan.
And I like all those bands. I think Justin Timberlake has some talent on it. It's not necessarily my kind of music. Right. I do tend to like the heavier things, but it bothers me. And I've had this conversation with many people, and I don't know why it bothers me, Mike. I really don't. And maybe I need therapy for this.
No, it's just so funny that the two bands I was thinking of, that you brought them up. It's fantastic.
And again, it's and I'm gonna stop talking about Nickelback here, but there are groups of people that hate Nickelback. It's all over the internet. Look it up. There are articles. They're from Canada. Maybe people don't like the Canadian thing. I love Canada. I think Canada is a great country. I think that's a good thing that they're from Canada. Why not?
Yeah.
Anyway,
like I said, kind of the same thing. Like, you hate the Dallas Cowboys. I think I heard a lot of people hate Guy Fieri for some reason. It's just like they find one person or one group in each genre or industry that they got to pick on.
Well, after this, after my little vent, my little diatribe here, people are probably gonna hate me. So if you hate me, join the club, get in line. So you obviously have a passion for music, and I actually do. Another thing I do remember from you, Mike, you did have a great Guns N' Roses shirt that you wore often in high school. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And now so you're in a cover band now, and talk about how you get influenced by music. How are you influenced by music? How has music kind of shaped your life? You got the guitar in the background. You're a guitarist, rhythm guitar.
Yep.
How did you end up playing rhythm guitar, and how has kind of music shaped your life? It's a hobby, obviously, for you. You're getting paid to do it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it takes time away from your family and whatnot. How did you get into it, and what's influenced you?
Well, I always loved music from when I was a little kid. I was always listening to radio. I was always recording songs off the radio, making mixtapes through middle school. I remember sitting in my room waiting for Youth Gone Wild by Skid Row to come on and record it. Like, I just loved music, always loved music. And then in college it was grunge. It was just always something I enjoyed listening to and had a passion for. And I always was drawn towards guitar. In my 8th grade music class, the teacher offered lessons for those who wanted, and I took a few lessons and then didn't touch it until I was 18 or 20, and just slowly always wanted to be a hobby of mine. I figured if I noodled around, by the time I was 80, I'd be okay at it. And just by joining the band, I would have never thought that, by my age, that I'd be performing in front of people and, they'd be going crazy and we'd be having a good time. I share it with my daughters. They see me playing guitar, and it's awesome. It's introduced them to a whole bunch of music that they wouldn't have normally heard on their pop radio stations. And I love that they drag it off of iTunes onto their iPhones and will play it. And, they have a party rocker, and they'll sit and sing the songs that I play on guitar, and it's fantastic. So it's kind of shaping my kids. It's always shaped me. Just always had a passion for music and enjoyed it.
You mentioned Skid Row, and I love Sebastian Bach. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I always thought he was one of the biggest studs, and he performed on Broadway too. So he was legit. Like, he performed on Broadway. I forgot what show he was in. He'd be like a good Phantom of the Opera kind of guy. Because he did have pipes on him, that guy. He went up a little high there too.
Ridiculous talent.
He could get away with it. He had really, really a great, strong voice. But as you were growing up, and again, we just mentioned a couple bands, but did you have anybody that you sort of said, someday if I ever become a musician, this is how I want to model myself, this guy or girl or woman or this band, anybody that sort of influenced you to kind of take up the guitar?
It was never just one guitarist or one band. I liked everything. When it was the 80s, I liked the hair bands. When it was 90s, I liked the grunge. I liked it all. Being able to replicate any of it was exciting for me, and so I just always, it made me feel like I was a part of something bigger to be able to replicate that. And so it was never just one thing, one artist.
Have you influenced anyone to start? I mean, you talked about your daughters, and I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing, because you are a teacher, which is one of the most important jobs out there. It really is, and I can imagine that you probably have an influence on those students' lives. Getting a little serious here, but you obviously, I'm sure you probably reference music in your math class. People, they know that you're in a band. Most of them. Have you influenced anyone to say, hey, Mr. Cassia is a great teacher, great guy. I think I'm going to maybe take up the guitar. Has anybody ever come back to you and said that, thanks for being an influence on me?
Not that I recall musically, I have gotten thank yous over the years about, being a good teacher, but, never the inspiration of the music, because I think most of the kids, you'd be surprised how talented a lot of these kids are, and far beyond the talent that I have. So if some of them can bring something to the table and we can do something for the class, they outshine me. And it's just pretty awesome. This generation coming up is just super talented. And so, no one ever told me after the fact, I got into this because of you, but I received thanks for what I brought to the classroom for them.
And that's amazing that you're able to shape the kids, and you're a math teacher, and you have a rocker side on you, which is even more awesome. And I think I have to be honest with you. When we got back in touch, I just wanted to say I had a friend in a band. I thought that was cool. It's also because you're a great guy. Let me ask you a question. So, you teach 12th grade. So 12th grade, they're 17, 18 years old, and they're not allowed in bars.
Right.
Have any of your students ever showed up at one of your gigs?
So unexpectedly. So not in the bar, but outside on the corner, in the summer in Saratoga, windows are open, live music's playing. It's a party out there. So I remember, playing at the Saratoga City Tavern, place is jam-packed, 10 people deep on the sidewalk listening to, and there's a group of my students there waving to me, hey, Mr. Cassia. And it's just hilarious, just seeing that. So, and another time after graduation, a bunch of seniors kept saying, we're going to come see you. We're going to come see you. And we were playing at Bailey's downtown. And that's a restaurant and bar. So between 9 and 10, people are sitting there. There's tables you can eat, and underage people can get in. So they kind of came in for the first hour, and they thought it was the greatest thing ever, posing in front of me, taking pictures. And then at 10 o'clock, it's okay. Now it's the older crowd. You guys need to leave. And so, but they loved every second of it. And it was cool.
So if you saw one of your students in the bar drinking a beer, you're up there, you're jamming along, you're playing Stone Temple Pilots, right? You're up there doing that, and you see one of your students in the crowd with a beer, and that student is not 21.
Okay, I was gonna say current or former.
No, this is current. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you calling that kid out, or are you letting them party?
No, I'm not letting them party.
All right. You have to say that. Are you tenured? They're still doing that?
Yeah, 10 years after 3 years. No, it's a responsibility. You have to, because, anything could happen. kids talk. If something happened, yeah, there's Mike Cassia, you know, not cool. My teaching's my bread and butter. It's my livelihood. I'm not going to risk that just so somebody would think I'm, you know, so some 17-year-old thinks I'm cool, you know. So, you know, responsibility above all.
You're in a band. You're cool.
I know, you know.
Once you're a guitarist in a band, you're cool. It doesn't matter. You could call out 10 kids and say, "Get the heck out of here. You shouldn't be drinking." You'll still be cool. I want to talk about cover bands.
Thank you.
And I've had this like I said, I've had this conversation with a lot of people as far as cover bands. And I want to get your view on it because I've heard some amazing cover bands. Like I'm sure the Dude Abides. I'm going to check you guys out when they start opening the bars up. I'm really excited about that. Mike Cassia with me here on Eye on Life podcast. The Dude Abides. Find him on Facebook. And it's a conversation I've had because I've heard some absolutely awful cover bands.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things I've always thought with a cover band is that it's one thing if you're a local band or whatnot. And, you know, when big bands cover a song from the past or whatnot, I feel like there's like added pressure because it almost can't even be as good as the original. It has to almost be better, you know, and I don't, and when it comes to like bands that, you know, like famous bands that are doing, you know, redoing a song and covering a song, I find that they usually miss the mark. And I'll just give you an example, one that I think actually is almost even better. And I know this is sacrilegious to say this, but John Mayer doing Tom Petty's Free Fallin', I think is absolutely unbelievable. I don't know that I go so far to say better than the original, but he made it his own. He customized it for his audience. There's a live version at one of the clubs out in Los Angeles that's on my iPod I listen to, and it's just phenomenal. But I've also heard some real stinkers. When you guys are performing a Pink Floyd song or an STP song, right? How are you trying to duplicate what they did? Are you trying to make it your own? Do you base your decision on playing that song on the bands that you guys love, or just a band that you guys feel like you kind of relate to? How does that whole thing work?
So I think when a famous band covers a song, that you want to hear their take on it. You know, you want to hear, you know, if Green Day covers a song, you want to hear how Green Day, you know, changes it and makes it their own. You know, we're not a band that does originals. So when you're out at a bar, they want to hear, you know, the original song as closely as it can. And we get compliments for that all the time. We pride ourselves in replicating it as exactly as we can. And just people come up to us and go crazy. Yeah, it sounds just like the radio. It was amazing. And even though it sounds just like the radio, it's the whole live music experience is a different thing. They're there, they feel the drums, they feel the bass, they feel the gain and distortion coming out of my amp. It's a whole different experience live. So to feel it and also hear it exactly the way it was, we get tons of praise for that. You know, we can't exactly put our own twist on it because, to be honest, we're just a cover band. You know, we're a bunch of guys with day jobs, so we don't have our own twist that we're going to put on it. Sometimes we will cover a cover. For example, like a punk rock version of a song, a band, you mentioned Free Fallin'. We started Free Fallin' by Tom Petty, and a band did a punk cover of it. And for a couple years, we did the punk cover version of it because it was just awesome. So if it's something we know will work with an audience and connect with them, we'll do it. But it's not our own twist.
So the Dude Abides cover band up in Saratoga Springs, New York. And do you have, and I would imagine that probably if I asked the other guys in the band as well, they might all have different answers. So I want to ask you, do you have a favorite song that you like to cover?
Yeah, there's two that are really my favorites. So All the Small Things by Blink-182.
Oh, I love that. That's a great song.
Just the crowd goes wild, absolutely wild. And surprisingly, you might laugh at this, but Slide by the Goo Goo Dolls, they go just as wild, and it sounds fantastic with the two guitars. They just complement each other. Super easy to play. Place usually just goes crazy. So those are my favorites just because they're easy and mindless, and you can go just as wild as the audience does and enjoy it.
I lived in Buffalo for a while. I have to like the Goo Goo Dolls, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Buffalo's original, right? When you're in the bar, so you guys perform, and how big are the bars? Are these dive bars? I know Bailey's is a great restaurant up there and bar, and it's a great scene up in Saratoga. Different bars have different atmospheres. How do you guys choose where you end up performing? How do you choose the venue? Do they choose you? How does that work? Because I want to see you guys at SPAC in a few years, opening up for Bon Jovi.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, it's hit or miss. You get into a place and sometimes you're not a good fit. Sometimes you're a great fit. The places that we tend to play are the ones that obviously were a good fit. We hit Saratoga City Tavern, was one of the first places we played. Bailey's was actually our first show. It just complemented the music that we were doing very well. The age group, it was a hit. You try other places and you're not such a big hit. You're doing the same thing. So, you don't know until you get there. And so the places that it works and you're a good fit, they tend to have you back. You just build a reputation with them, and you hang your sign out front and people see it and they come in and they know what they're going to get, and it's just a good time.
I want to talk about, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. As far as dive bars, I mean, downtown Saratoga, there really aren't any dive bars. It's just awesome places, awesome people. Every place is packed. It's a good time. So,
very important question.
Every bar.
Sorry, a little delay here. So, very important question for you.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this? Are you sure you're ready for this?
Yeah, I'm preparing.
So in addition to the extra finances that you have playing in the cover band, is it free beer?
Most venues, yeah. If it's not free beer, it's half price. But yeah, it depends on the place.
Okay, so let's get into some of the stereotypes about rockers,
yeah.
Right? And I am calling you a rocker. You're a teacher by day, a rocker by night. So
I wish it was the other way. Yeah, I wish I was a rocker, full time. But take what you can get.
You'll take what you can get, and hey, you're performing in Saratoga Springs, New York. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you get paid for it. It's not bad.
So let's talk about some of the stereotypes. So, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? I know you've been a family guy. You have daughters, obviously. Are the stereotypes, and you hear all these stories about famous rockers. We talked about Ozzy Osbourne before. Many stories about him. Many stories about Marilyn Manson. Many stories about a lot of these guys, the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith. They don't remember. There are decades apparently that they don't remember. Yet these guys are still alive and touring, right? Which God I want to get to. And I have an issue with that too, which I'm going to get to in a second. I have another rant coming. So if you don't like the rant, you probably want to turn off the show right now. Are the stereotypes, are they accurate? I mean, when you go up on stage, I would imagine that you kind of have to be clear to be able to perform. But I think Axl Rose may have the opposite effect, where he needed to be on, and I'm not accusing him, he may not have been on anything, but a lot of these guys were. So when you go up there, before you perform, how many beers do you have before?
Oh, before? I'll maybe have one before and have one waiting for me for first set. So, it's the local scene's a whole lot different than national bands, totally different scene. Yeah, not what you'd expect stereotypically at all. So
I won't even ask you how many you drink after the set is over, but we'll leave that for another time. Unless you want to volunteer that, but we do have there is Uber in Saratoga, so it's okay if you have a few and imbibe a little bit. It's been said, legend has it that rockers, they attract the groupies. And, these days it could be male groupies or female groupies, right? There are some great female bands out there as well. I think that some of the female rockers that are out there right now, and I loved when she was around Cranberries, amazing voice with was Dolores O'Riordan, right? Paramore. There's some great female bands, so they may have male groupies. But do local circuit? Do you guys have any groupies? Are there a few people that are at every single show and maybe it's a little weird? Are you there yet? Or
there were for a little bit, but I don't know. We're a bunch of old dudes, in our 40s now, so it's not like we're getting the 20-year-old girls coming out to see us and giving us their number.
So let me ask you a question, okay? Because this is the part that's bothering me, and I know I really shouldn't let it bother me, but I have an issue. And 40 years old is fine. But I sort of feel like, and I understand, there are these bands that are still performing, and if people are still attending and you're making money off it and you love it, I guess go for it, right? Aerosmith, the Rolling Stones, New Kids on the Block aren't that old, but they're still a boy band in adult bodies now, right?
Yep.
Is that acceptable? I mean, I feel like I overreact to a lot of things in life. One of the past shows, I talked about people jogging with no shirt on. It bothers me. That kind of thing bothers me. Little things bother me, I feel like, as I've gotten older, right? But there's just something about seeing Styx or REO Speedwagon out there. And these are bands that are great. It bothers me seeing these guys up on stage. It's creepy to me. It's disturbing. A lot of them have lost their vocals, and I'm not throwing them under the bus. I probably would go see them because they're good bands. But I guess my question to you, as somebody who is in a band, at what point do you just cut it loose and say, I am done? I'm not performing anymore. Does it really have to be when you lose your vocal cords? Or can it just be common sense to say, maybe it's time for me to cut my hair. Maybe it's time for me to retire. What do you think?
It should be common sense. It shouldn't be do it until you can't do it anymore. It should be do it as long as you maintain the integrity of the product that you originally released. And your show is engaging and the fans are there. It's tough seeing some of these older guys still go out and do it, and it's not what it used to be. Some of them shouldn't be doing it.
Part of me says I'm really impressed if I was that age and I could do it, I would do it. And so there's almost like you get up there and, Bruce Springsteen, right? I mean, the guy's older now, and I think he performs for like 3.5 hours. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Still crushing it. Yeah.
Which is awesome. He hasn't lost he hasn't lost a step.
Right. As long as you can maintain the integrity of what the show and the sound. Yeah. Great. Keep at it. That I don't think you should wait until your voice gives out on stage, and then
it bothers me. I'm sorry. It bothers me a little bit. And some bands can pull it off. Bruce, I think Def Leppard, his voice is still pretty good. But I sort of feel amazing. Like if you were performing in the 50s, you may want to start giving it a little bit of a thought. It might be time to retire down to Florida or something like that. But my other question for you is, and again, I think this is a perfect question for you because you're in a cover band. What do you think about bands who continue, even without the lead singer that they had before, that maybe help put them on the map? So, for example, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, again, usually in a bar over a bourbon or a beer, right? Van Halen, after David Lee Roth left and Sammy Hagar took over, we were talking about Alice in Chains and how they have the new lead singer now, newer. He's been with them. I know Lynyrd Skynyrd is a band that I don't know if any of those guys are the originals anymore. When Michael McDonald left the Doobie Brothers, what are your thoughts on that? I got into a big argument with a buddy of mine a couple of years ago. He said that they're basically cover bands, and I said no, they're not. They're still the band. It's just they've just moved on without the singer. The singer either passed away tragically, or it was a business agreement. They decided to part ways. I think the guy from Journey now, I don't know his name. I think he's I think he's from the Philippines. I think he's awesome.
Correct. Yep.
So what are your thoughts on that? Are you still? Is there a band that you love that does not have a lot of the originals that you'll still listen to?
I have no problem with a new singer taking the place of an old one, as long as they fit the bill and they can replicate or even take it to a whole new level. I thought Sammy Hagar entering Van Halen. I thought that was incredible. I love the Sammy Hagar days of Van Halen. So I have no problem with that. The guy from Journey, incredible. When I saw a concert on Palladio with him in Manila, was blown away. Yeah, you can't see Steve Perry. The full band is there. They're killing it. Sounds great. I have no problem with it.
Okay, now, and I do. I'm the same way. I encourage that. If you still have some of the guys in the band and you can find a lead singer that can pull it off, there are a lot of great debates taking place across this great country that are not necessarily about politics, which is something that we're not covering on the show, but that are about Sammy Hagar or David Lee Roth. Who did you like better? Yeah. Or Steve Perry versus this guy. I mean, they're good conversations to have, but let me ask you the opposite one. Okay. What happens to these guys that leave the band and they go on their own solo careers? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So it depends. I have no problem with that. They, like you suggested, maybe they thought they were too big for the band. They wanted to try something different. And if they're good and have success with it,
I'm going to give you some examples because I want to know what your thoughts are on these. And I have to think about the top of my head because this was not a question. This was not a planned question. So now I have to think off the top of my head here, right?
Yeah.
All right. So David Lee Roth leaves Van Halen. Okay.
Yep.
Was that a fail or a success?
It was probably a fail. I think I liked 2 of his songs that he put out. I recall a video of him, swinging from rocks and cliffs and things. And it was a cool song. He had 1 or 2 hits, but yeah, I wasn't running out and buying the album.
Just a Gigolo. We all know that song.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But let's be honest here. Okay.
Just like Paradise. That's what it is. Just like Paradise.
That's a great song, actually. That is a great song. But let's be real. Okay. Let's be real. Let's put it all on the table here, Mike, right? If you go see David Lee Roth solo, you're there to hear Van Halen songs.
Absolutely.
You're not there to hear just a Gigolo, maybe.
Right. I think you expect that, and you want to hear that, definitely.
Okay.
And I think they're entitled to play those songs. Definitely.
Absolutely.
You expect it, and you hope for it.
You do hope for it, and sometimes they still sound great, which is awesome. Great example of actually a band that's had a lot of success after they left the band, the Eagles, right? Don Henley. And I was never really a huge fan of the Eagles, but and everybody knows I hate the Philadelphia Eagles, the football team. But I never really got into the Eagles. I never really got into classic rock. I've gotten a little bit more recently. Don Henley, what'd you think of him, Eagles or post-Eagles? I mean, he was very successful, but would you consider that as a music guy, would you consider that a fail or a success?
Well, I was never a big fan of the Eagles anyway, but Boys of Summer has always been one of my favorite songs. Love it. God, when it comes on the radio, I crank it up. We covered it in the band. That was one of the songs that we did a cover of a cover. We did a punk rock version of it. Love it. So, as far as I'm concerned, I thought he did a great job with that. And yeah, there are other off the top of my head that I can think of, that songs that he had on the radio. I appreciate it. Thought he did a good job.
Can you, so going back, and I have a lot of things going through my head here. We can talk music all night. I really won't keep you all night here. I promise. I told you with one guest, I can still easily do an hour. So can you dislike a band, still respect their talents? Or is it, if you hate them, are you pretty much like, they just stink?
I respect the talent always, even if I don't like, I'm not a Maroon fan, I'm not a Justin Timberlake fan. I respect their talent. They're very talented. They're just not producing, something that really connects with me. That's all. And I have a newfound respect for a lot of these guys when I actually see a live concert of theirs on TV or something, though I am not the biggest Maroon fan, just watching Adam Levine shred on the guitar, I had no idea that he was actually that ridiculously talented. So I appreciate the talent always, whether or not it connects with me.
So at the risk of becoming a pariah, okay, I'm going to bring up a very sensitive subject, and I feel like I may have actually lost friends over this argument. And it also goes back to somebody leaving a band and having a career. I want to ask you about Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
So Robert Plant left Led Zeppelin, right, and had a solo career. I would consider that a success. I think he did pretty well. I know Jimmy Page did the same thing. Would you consider those guys successful after Led Zeppelin? I mean, and we're talking about, that's an extreme example because that's a legiondary band.
It is.
What are your thoughts on those guys going solo?
I think they went solo because there was no other option, I guess, but with how iconic Led Zeppelin was, any success you have after that would have to pale in comparison, but people love going to their shows and being a part of that, making a connection to it. So, I'm not exactly.
I'm going to anger you now, though. I'm going to anger you now. I'm going to anger you now with my next comment, and I want you to, if you disagree with me, I want you to call me out on it.
Okay.
Okay. There are 2 bands that have had, they're legendary bands, and I just don't get it. I need somebody to explain it to me. I mean, there are a lot of bands. There are a lot of bands I don't like that people love, and I'm the same way. I can say I dislike a band, and still respect that they're, it's a good band. I just don't like them. I can also say that there are bands that I enjoy that I know that are not very talented. I actually like some of the boy bands. I admit it. I could probably hang out with your daughters and listen to some of that, and I promise it wouldn't be creepy, but. I can listen to that kind of music, but there are 2 bands that I do not get. And one of them is Led Zeppelin. And the other one, and I know you guys did a cover, and I enjoyed your cover more than I liked the original band, Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Can you explain to me why they're such legendary bands? I don't get it. The songs they're too long. I don't get the lyrics. I don't get what the songs are about. Maybe I'm just not deep enough to understand it. But I don't understand the hype of those bands. I mean, I just don't. And even as I've gotten older, like I used to really dislike U2. I actually love U2 now. I think U2 is a great band. My tastes have maybe matured a little bit. But even to this day, anytime Pink Floyd comes on, I get nauseous. I can't listen to it. I'm not a drug guy. I've never been a drug guy. I feel like those are the kind of bands. Grateful Dead is another band. I'm going to throw them in that whole thing. You can see a theme here, right? I don't understand why 80,000 people are packing into a stadium to see these guys play. What am I missing? Tell me. You covered a Pink Floyd. I mean, another brick in the wall? Really?
Yeah. They were the first to do it. You know, they were the first to do what they did, and it made them famous. People connected with it. They loved it. And they were so popular that people still try to replicate some of that. I think that it's also a generational thing, you know. The generation before us probably liked it a lot more than we did. I think today there's just a lack of attention span with these, you know, this generation. They couldn't sit there and listen to a 7-minute song with a 2-minute intro. There's no way.
I can't either.
Way, you know,
and I'm an older generation.
And so I love some of the riffs from Led Zeppelin. The vocals are amazing. Do I go and put the CD in and listen to it? Not really, but yeah, iconic bands, and they were the pioneers that did it, and I think they deserve credit for that. And I think that just resonates throughout each generation. You know, each generation finds the previous and kind of connects to it in some way. So, and also, the kids like what their older brothers and sisters or parents listen to sometimes. And I think that's what crosses the generations as well. You probably see kids of every age, you know, young kids to people our age and older at those shows. So
a 12-minute song is just,
yeah,
I can't, come on. Move on.
I hear you. I
mean, cut the song in half and make it 2 songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too long. I'm sorry. It's too long. And that drives me nuts. Anyway, I know they're popular bands, and I know I don't want to sound like a hypocrite here because I know those bands probably paved the way for a lot of the bands that I enjoy and listen to today. So
they absolutely did. Yeah.
Again, I respect sort of the talent, but I just can't get into it. We're going to start to wrap up here. You've given me a lot of time, Mike. I really appreciate it. Again, you're listening to the Eye on Life podcast. We're going to do a lot of shows about music. This is just one. We're doing a one-on-one because Kerry Collins, our on-air personality here in Hartford, who was supposed to join us, is stuck in Vermont with Ben and Jerry, and there's no technology. There's, I don't know, too much ice cream up there or something. I don't know what the issue is. I love Vermont, but come on. I do want to ask you just a couple of questions before we wrap up here. What's the first concert that you attended in your life? We all have that, you know, we've all had that conversation. And I know we talked about it off the air before we came on here, but what was the last concert that you attended as well? I want to hear which two, and I want to know if I'm going to make fun of you for the first one.
Oh, you're definitely gonna make fun of me for the first one.
I think we all have that.
Yeah. I saw Heart at RPI Fieldhouse when I was probably 12 or 13. I just, you know,
I'm not making
I want to go see Heart.
I would have seen Heart last year.
It was awesome.
They're a great band.
Yeah. So that was my first one. You know, just me and my dad, 12 years old. First concert, great, awesome time. Last concert, I was so excited to see them, was Third Eye Blind. They were coming to SPAC, and I remember my brother-in-law, we were driving there, and we put their first CD in, and he said on the way there, it was amazing. He said, you know, this CD, you just got to listen to it from start to finish. There's no other way. It's just incredible, every song. And when we got to the show, they did a few songs, and they said, you know, we titled this tour Summer of Gods because we were going to have this new EP out, but we don't. So we're just going to do the first album in its entirety. And we almost lost it. Like, we just couldn't be more excited because we were talking about that on the way there. It was awesome.
And that was at SPAC. You said that was at SPAC, right? That was last
Yep.
year.
Yeah. Inside seats at SPAC. Just amazing.
But I do just have to say one thing. And again, I feel bad putting you on the spot here, but I have to do it.
Okay.
You said that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, come on. 2 years since you went to your last concert. Come on. I mean, we have to talk about this. I know that we're as we're winding down here, but I need to ask you two more questions, which will probably end up turning into 5 more. But
no.
We talked about the fact that your band is not performing these days, as well as every other band right now, because of the situation that we're in with the pandemic and whatnot. And I feel like people are consuming music differently these days, maybe, differently they have in the past, because this summer, for example, I know they're talking about maybe having some bands at drive-in venues so people can stay in their car and listen. How do you see music changing? How do you see, post-COVID, a lot of things are going to change, business, the way we do business and the way we interact with people socially, economically. When it comes to music, how do you think, if at all, maybe we'll get back to normal at some point, but how do you see people consuming music? Do you see yourself at legitimately getting back out there and performing in these bars at some point, or there have to be another way, a pivot, where you guys will have to say, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it in a parking lot somewhere or something like that. How do you see? What do you see in the future here?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that, playing in a parking lot. It's tough because a lot of these places, from the smallest bars to the biggest arenas, you got a social distance. So what are you going to have? A third of the capacity? Can you make a profit off of just 1/3 of the capacity and social distancing? Is it worth it to even hire a band in a bar if you are limited to that capacity? So we don't know what it holds. There are a few places that are having outside bands. I'd love to talk to them and see what kind of success they're having. You did mention the movie theater. We were offered a gig like that. They were going to have a rock theme movie, and they wanted a band to play an hour before that for the movie, which I thought would have been cool. But some of our members are still a little bit scared of the whole COVID, and we have to respect that as well. So we couldn't take it. A lot of people on Facebook are just doing live streaming, some front yard concerts, outside concerts, and putting out tip jars that you can tip. I feel like you just don't capture the full experience that way. You can only get such high quality sound out of an iPhone, so it's just a shame. I hope that things return to normal. We get to get out there and feel the music and be a part of a bigger scene.
Let's all hope that, because by the time we get to that point where music can be performed live in the venues that we love, that means life will be as close to back to normal as we can get. Scenario for you here. Okay, and again, I lied because I said I actually have 2 more questions now. These are quickies, and I know that you want to probably get back to your family here, but let me just ask you these questions.
Sure.
So the dude abides, right? Okay, you guys are performing, and there's a scout. See, I'm a sports fan. I say scout. What do they call it? An agent, right? An agent. Okay, an agent in the crowd loves you guys. You guys are killing it. He or she comes up to you after the show and says, Mike, I know you're a teacher, but if you could give it all up today to become a rock star, would you do it?
If it were a guarantee.
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 And I'm going to wait. There's a second part to that question too, because I want you to. There are 2 parts to this question. I want you to answer both. Okay, so all those Shenandoah kids, they're going to miss out on Mr. Cassia teaching 12th grade math. Think about that, okay?
Yeah. So hearts will be broken.
You have a chance. You have a chance of a lifetime to be in a rock band. Oh, and you have to leave the dude abides. You're leaving these guys behind.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
So are you doing it? And the dude abides. I'm sure they'll let you off the hook if you say yes. And what's the first venue you're picking to perform in? Your favorite venue that you'd love to perform in. So 2-part question there, Mike. I know, a lot of pressure here. There are a lot of people, pressure. A lot of eyes on you here.
Well, who wouldn't do it? I would do it in a second if I could. Yeah, I think anybody would. It's always a dream of any musician to hit it big and be able to do something like that. And where would I play? Where else but SPAC? I mean, come on.
Yes.
It'd be ridiculous. To see it from the other side like that, to be on stage, just see the crowd out there all the way deep on the lawn. No question.
That's got to be an amazing feeling. I mean, every time. I don't know if we for graduation we did, obviously, but there have been a couple of times where I've been at SPAC and you get on that stage because they're pretty they're pretty flexible. You can walk in there during the day, and I just look out there and be like, man, can you imagine what it would be like to be, even for you, like what's it like even at a bar, to just look out there and all these people are singing the songs that you're singing and they're rocking to you, and
It's surreal.
That's got to be an amazing euphoric feeling. How is that?
It is an absolutely amazing feeling. I mean, the first year I was terrified to be on stage because I was new to it. I came into it, in my 30s. But now, oh God, it's just amazing. To see the energy and the fun that the people are having and the way they engage, and for me to just be up there slamming on my guitar, having a good time with them. It's just, it's absolutely amazing.
So this really is my final question, even though I could talk to you all night, which is good because we had a lot to catch up on, and I got to embarrass you a little bit today.
Yeah.
And and you gave me some really good insight as well. And again, anyone who's catching this part of the show, Mike and I go way back, 6th grade, literally right down the street from me. And I can tell you're, and I'm not just saying this because you agreed to be on the show, but you're still just as great a guy today as you were back then, which is awesome. It's awesome that you've become a teacher and a rock star here. But you talked earlier. You're in a band. Okay, so you're in the Dude Abides, right, up Saratoga Springs, New York. You've been to tons of concerts in your life. I have as well. You've had music lessons. You said that you've shared this passion with your daughters. In all the years that you've been doing this as a hobby and as being in the band, what's been your most memorable music moment? Is there any situation or event that just kind of sticks out at you and says, wow, that's what makes this all worth it?
Are you referring to me personally with live music and my band, or just like concert experiences?
Anything. Anything. It could be your band. It could be a concert that you went to, and maybe Axl Rose had a bead of his sweat landed on you. I don't know. But whatever.
Something close to that. It was it was when I saw Third Eye Blind actually a long time ago. We saw them at Northern Lights, if you remember. It's now Upstate Concert Hall at Clifton Park. Sure. Small venue. And I remember just, they've always been one of my favorite bands. And a former student came up to me that was working there, and he's like, hey, do you want to get closer to the band? Of course I want to get closer, Can I bring my wife? Yeah, get her real quick. So we walk out the back door, around the tour bus, and in a side door, and we're sitting right next to the stage. I'm looking at Stephen Jenkins' bottle of Jack Daniels within arm's reach. Just amazing. And so we sit there and watch a song, and he says, do you want to get even closer? I looked at my wife like, how could I possibly get any closer, So he proceeds to lead us over one of the subwoofers, and we're standing between the gate that holds the crowd back and the lead singer. And awesome. It was just ridiculous. Even the bouncer looked out at me and said, who are you with? So I just kind of pointed to this former student, like,
VIP treatment.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that was just tremendous. That was awesome.
Now, did you become a groupie? Was that a groupie moment for you?
Yeah, definitely. It was fantastic.
No, it wasn't creepy though, right? It was fine. It was appropriate.
Definitely appropriate. Yeah.
It's all good. So
try to keep the creep factor down.
As we get older, we have to keep that. Each year it gets more and more challenging to keep away that creepy factor. Yeah. Mike Cassia, teacher. The students are lucky to have you, obviously, and cover band up in Saratoga Springs, New York. The Dude Abides. I know people can find you on Facebook, Mike. Is there anywhere else we can point them to listen or find your schedule when we get out of this COVID garbage?
Yeah, we everything we stick to Facebook. So if you look us up, it's the Dude Abides NY, because we're in New York State. So you can find us on Facebook.
So if I want to make sure, because when I was doing my research, it took me right to the Big Lebowski, and I did finally find you. So if you get to the Big Lebowski, you haven't gone far enough. You have to look a little bit further, and it's well worth it. Trust me. Mike Cassia, great high school buddy, great musician, and great guy. Thanks so much for being with us on the Eye on Life podcast. And again, we covered music today. We've covered gym culture. You can subscribe to the show if you like it. Please share it with your friends. I know today there's a lot of talking back and forth between myself and Mike, and we had a good one-on-one. We try to get 2 or 3 people on the show at once, but again, Nickelback. If you have any connections to Nickelback, anyone, let me know. I got to talk to these guys because I don't want the hate on it. But whatever, we talked about a lot of our personal tastes in music today, and I just want to say, whatever you listen to, whatever you enjoy, keep listening to the music. I think that was the Doobie Brothers, right? Listen to the music. Wasn't that their song? Listen to the music. So do me a favor, listen to the music, and also in the meantime, until next time, keep an eye on life. Thanks.